Hey guys, what's going on? Steven back again, and I'm back with another 40k video from Bricky. So once again, I am continuing on with his every single Warhammer 40k faction re-explained part 1, my part 3, because I am breaking this video up into smaller videos because his video is, roughly about 2 hours long. So I'm just making a couple smaller videos. But yeah, this video here has been really good. The first one he did 4 or 5 years ago was good, but this one here is so much better. He's not just going, here's this faction here, here's some lore on it. Here's this faction here, a little lore on it. This faction, a little lore. He's basically like weaving the story and explaining the factions as he tells the story. It's like, well, there was the old ones, and there was the Necron tier, and, they wanted immortality and stuff like that. And then that led, to the War in Heavens, and then they became the Necrons. And then once the War in Heavens was over, the old ones created other races. So one of the races they created was Eldar, and now we're going right into the Eldar faction, and then going into the lore of the Eldar. And then what did the Eldar do? Created a chaos god, so that goes right into chaos. So I like how he's doing this. So yeah, this is great. I really like this. But here we are with the Imperium of Man. This is probably going to be the rest of the entire video, because like he said in his first video, the Imperium of Man, because that takes up a fat chunk of lore. So yeah, I'm guessing the Imperium is going to be the rest of this entire video. But, alright, let's jump right in, and here we go, Imperium of Man.
Before the fall of the Eldar, Earth, or Terra, as it's called, was in ruin. One man looks to put the pieces back together. Where did he come from? We don't know. Some say he was the result of early shamans. Some say he is the final old one who escaped their species genocide. And those that are smartest know the answer is, it doesn't matter. He revealed himself as the Emperor of Mankind, and he was tasked with the most monumental upheaval of humanity possible. The Eldari's warp fluctuations had turned the golden age of humanity into old night. Interstellar travel cut off? Check. An AI uprising? Check. Brand new psychers popping up and not knowing how to handle their powers? Oh, check. Demonic incursions?
We got those.
Thousands of years this occurred, and now the Emperor of Mankind showed himself to put the pieces back together. Unifying Terra under his rule, the Emperor founded the Imperium of Man and ruled it with an iron fist. He was the supreme leader, and nothing could stand against him. He wished to remove mankind from the yoke of its former failures, and he knew he would be the best leader they could have because he was right. AI banned. Religion banned. You did as the Emperor told you, or his Thunder Warriors would put you in your place. That place often being a grave. Now, Terra was thriving, but humanity needed to reclaim its long-lost brethren scattered across the stars. But to do so, he needed those that could build him a fleet truly meant for the reconquering of the galaxy. And so he turned his attention to the red planet of Mars.
Adeptus Mechanicus.
Mars and Terra were close allies long before the Unification Wars. Mars was the first world terraformed by humanity and became what would ultimately be the first hive world, an epicenter for industry and technology. The Age of Strife did not treat the red planet kindly, however. Mars was cut off from Terra during this time, and the warp storms that ravaged the planet turned it into an absolute nuclear hellscape. Those who were on the surface were turned into your run-of-the-mill mutant, if they even survived the bombings they inflicted on themselves, but others were lucky enough to escape beneath the red sands in powerful fallout shelters. These became their generational habitats, But this resulted in extreme reliance on technology and those who could use it. They began to view the technology keeping them alive less as a technological advancement and more of a divine intervention, with those skilled in it as priests. The Martians began to worship the power of the machine, and this resulted in the formation of the cult Mechanicus, the belief in a holy trinity known as the 3-in-1. The machine god, serving as the spirit who gave rise to all technologies known, the motive force, the deity that gives all life its ability to live, and the Omnissiah, a physical manifestation of the machine.
Oh, okay. I didn't know there's like 3 parts to that.
This belief began to manifest in them.
See, he goes
physically as
much
well.
deeper into the lore.
Once humans began to really mess around with the character creator options, and this tech obsession made them view instances
Gotta love a
of
good character creation screen
to be weak and spend their lives removing what makes them human and replacing it with mechanical augments. Robotic limbs, glowing eyes, mechadendrite arms. What was once a mass of flesh now looks like the back of a router, and the oldest members of the Mechanicus no longer even look
flesh is weak.
slightly
Flesh is
human.
corruptible.
In addition to this, cloaked over all of their mechanical appendages are robes that reflect the color of their homeworld, the red robes of the Mechanicus. The cult
so that's why they wear red. Oh, I guess that makes sense.
Create a
Red planet, red robes.
of cultures all birthed
Makes
into
sense.
one. Basically, techno-zealot monks. Organic life is the machine god's greatest accomplishment within the scope of the great work. All praise he who is 3-in-1. By giving us life within an organic shell, he presents us with the means and opportunity to improve upon physicality, as is his divine plan. He grants us complex weakness so we might learn metallic strength and ascend to his level of machinic perfection. The Emperor's arrival to Mars was very much a walking in with the pizzas while the room is on fire moment, but to the Mechanicum, they saw his arrival as confirmation of their belief. They took one look at the glowing golden entity that showed up on their doorstep and were like, that's him. That's the guy right there. And they immediately accepted him as the Omnissiah. Obviously, showing up and being called Machine Jesus shortly after wiping out all instances of non-Machine Jesus a little bit beforehand is an instance of capital H heresy. But the Emperor saw the bigger picture. Were they strange with how they rubbed unguents on themselves, burned incense, and prayed to machines for them to work?
Yeah.
Sure, but that's a lot of production right there.
Yeah.
So the Emperor devised the Treaty of Olympus Mons, a unifying agreement between Terra and Mars. And this union would be permanently etched into the Aquila of the Imperium as the two-headed eagle. One head for Terra, the other for Mars. The forces of the Emperor would be supplied with all the technology and weapons they needed to reunite the scattered remnants of humanity under one banner. And the Mechanicum of Mars would be able to keep doing what they were doing religiously and scientifically, so long as they kept up their tithes. This tithe meant total quality control over all technology in the Imperium. Is it a big spaceship? AdMech take care of that. Tanks? AdMech take care of that.
Right.
The literal bullets in a gun? You guessed it. But
they take care of
unlike
it.
the factories of today, the forge worlds of Mars and the creations of the Mechanicum are a bit of a different experience altogether. Instead of a factory on a random given world, the entirety of the planet's surface is dedicated to manufacturing. But that's a little tricky, isn't it? Considering that the usage of silica animus, or AI, is a big no-no, and basically the largest affront to their divine machine god possible. Fortunately, there's a really neat alternative that they've come up with, and that's called a servitor. Incredible devices that can do anything from manufacturing, maintenance, basic door operation, even just
basically as long as you're, doing what you need to do.
It's an extremely easy process.
Doesn't matter what else you're doing,
take a human who is dying or preferably an enemy of the state, most likely that one, and lobotomize them. And then reprogram their brains to do exactly what they tell you. They even got little baby versions of them. Yay! So now you can rest easy knowing that the entirety of the Imperium, because they outlaw AI and learning new tech is heresy, is run on lobotomized slaves. Whether they deserve it or not is unimportant, and whether they can still keep their consciousness trapped in their own minds is another thing entirely.
Yeah, that's pretty disturbing.
An excerpt from the Servitor creation factories.
Oh, Jesus.
Naked human beings were standing in a switch-packed line between high fences. The manufactorum produced servitors, but it was more akin to an abattoir than a workshop. Every surface was easily cleanable. Servitors with spray units surgically attached to their backs prowled about, hosing filth from slit drains set into the perfectly smooth, slanted floors. As the line slowly advanced, the people were passed through various scanning devices, most of them mounted in ugly, functional arches that let out a constant series of acceptance chimes. Occasionally, one would let out an angry blare, and the indicator lumens would flash red. The rejected person was then swallowed up by a trapdoor opening beneath their feet. From these pits wafted a hideous stench and the grinding sounds of industrial mincers. One rejected man grabbed onto the lip and hung there, arms and hands bloodied, shouting a stream of defiant profanities. Guards lined the grating either side of him and shocked him until he fell. The adepts wouldn't even waste bullets on these people. The trapdoor flipped up, and the next terrified person was ushered forward. Violent metal arms snatched them up and spread-eagled them in the air, and a servitor shearer shaved them all over. At another, they were subjected to a high-pressure counterseptic wash whose chemical stink made me choke from 100 feet away. More scanners.
Oh, I think this is from a book. I was watching a video reading about this. I think it was like a
common to all monotask
an inquisitor or something like that was looking for someone, and they went to one of these factories and stuff and was just horrified by like what was happening
into vulnerable flesh. The last few prayers gave way to screams at that point, and even the most stoic shouted in pain. They were ushered over a floor buzzing with power that made them shriek with every footstep. "What's that for?" I asked. "Follicular inhibitor. To stop their hair from growing," he said. Freaking sweet, Lois! As for their scientific pursuits, the Mechanicum believe in the preservation of knowledge above all, and the quest to expand it. However, as opposed to just innovating and inventing on their own with their vast technological know-how, they believe that it is a form of tech heresy. You see, because of their religious viewpoints on technology itself, they believe that the instruction booklet itself is just as holy as the Lego set it builds, and to innovate on that without the proper written knowledge
that's actually a pretty cool Lego set
against the divine word of the machine god itself. All knowledge is already in the universe. You simply need to rediscovering it and attempting to invent something to improve upon divinity is very heretical. Prior to the Age of Strife, humanity was able to populate the stars with devices known as Standard Template Constructs, or STCs. These devices were, as far as we know, supercomputers with the ability to pull up and detail how to create literally anything a startup colony would need. Essentially, they were devices with the entirety of human technological know-how so that you could make a home away from home. The Mechanicum will not make
there's so much more
without an
lore
STC.
to this video.
Quite literally nothing, because this is the knowledge they seek, and that knowledge is divine. One time, scouts of the Imperial Guard found a functioning STC that provided the schematics on a knife that happened to be a bit lighter and a bit sharper than most other knives. These knives were adopted by 30 Space Marine chapters and were one of the most advanced discoveries of the century. This discovery was so significant that they were each awarded a planet for finding this. A planet for a machine that taught them how to make knives. Due to their religious organization, you can probably guess the Mechanicum are organized in a feudal structure, with the highest individuals in power being a part of the priesthood. Cream of the crop being the Fabricator General of Mars itself, who serves as a High Lord of Terra, but also oversees the entirety of the Mechanicum below. Below them are tech priests that oversee the cult for the quest of knowledge and other more straightforward theocracy. Forge worlds tend to operate slightly more independently, what can cause some power struggles within the Mechanicum, because, you know, despite them all being weird robots, they love being given praise. And despite being the manufacturing end of the Imperium, they do actually have their own military forces. They have the Skitarii Private Army and all their various 1920s Martian-style mechanisms like Doom Crawlers, Castellan robots, and of course, the Titan Legions. Because nothing is cooler than a robot that towers over buildings. Ultimately, their very dogmatic view on technology as a whole has resulted in any innovation becoming absent. thus causing the Imperium to stagnate as a whole. The lack of ambition to create anything new and the wholesale murder of anyone who even tries leads to things becoming derelict. I grow weary of this flesh I was born into, strangely disgusted by its nature. I crave only the cold, clean certainty of steel and silicon, that I might become one with the blessed machine. I do not expect you to understand, you who cling to your flesh
just a
as if
little
it were
weird.
immortal, seeking only to preserve it, to protect it. One day you will see the folly of your ways, and then no doubt you will come begging to my order to preserve you. After the groundwork had been set unification-wise, it was time to start getting things together for the Emperor's great crusade across the stars, to bring humanity under one banner. The Thunder Warriors were a perfect fighting force for unifying Terra and Luna, but the galaxy was a whole different thing. You see, these warriors weren't soldiers in the eyes of the Emperor. They were tools, extremely blunt tools used for the fast conquest of Terra. As the Emperor was concerned, the tools you use at home aren't the same ones you take on a road trip. So the Emperor rid himself of his tools in the exact manner you think he did, and he went forward to crafting a brand new tool. One more mobile, more efficient, and ready for his next era of conquest. They shall be my finest warriors, these men who give of themselves to me. Like clay, I shall mold them, and in the furnace of war forge them. They will be of iron will and steely muscle. In great armor shall I clad them, and with the mightiest guns will they be armed.
If the Emperor was still alive, would he still keep the Space Marines around? Or would he replace them, like he replaced the Thunder Warriors? Maybe like it's time for a new, a new tool. Since he replaced the Thunder Warriors for a new tool,
they are the defenders of
would he have done the same thing with Space Marines eventually? If he was still around.
And they shall know no fear. The vastness of the Milky Way galaxy meant that the Emperor needed assistance bringing everyone back to the fold. And who better to do this than himself? But since the technology to be in many places at once does not exist
anymore, do this impossible
the
task?
Emperor decided that it was time to become a dad, the same way Geppetto did, and with far less care. It is not my son, Archon. None of them are. They are warlords, generals, tools bred to serve a purpose, just as legions were bred to serve a purpose. What a dad. The Primarch Project was started to create charismatic and unique leaders in the Imperial military. The diversity of these eventual leaders meant that each one could be specialized for certain circumstances across the galaxy. Depending on the type of conflict, one leader might be better than the other. So instead of forcing one leader to acclimate to a situation directly, it would be better to send a specialized
one instead of this one
to handle it. In order to do this, the Emperor used his genetic know-how and maybe a little bit of that forbidden stuff to create these genetically perfect gene fathers that had the ability to serve as his analog directly, and also serve as the leaders of the respective Space Marine legions. All 20, all 18, that's right, all 19 of his sons were meant to be directly molded by the Emperor himself, despite their genetic differences. And they go as follows in order. Lionel Johnson, Fulgrim, Percherabo, Jagatai Khan, Lehman Russ, Rogel Dorn, Conrad Kurz, Sanguinius, Ferris Manus, Angron, Robute Gilliman, Mortarion, Magnus the Red, Horus Lupercal, Lorgar Aurelian, Vulcan, Corvus Corax, and Alfarius and Omegon. His sons, finalized and crafted to be the warriors he needed them to be, were complete. But he may have decided to do a bit of dabbling with things he shouldn't have, and paid a price. Before the Primarchs were ready to go, an intervention by the gods of chaos prevented his plan from being completed as intended. Though the sources vary, the ultimate result of the Chaos God intervention was that all of the Emperor's tools were scattered throughout the galaxy at unknown places and times. Each one of his sons ended up in a completely different world, and instead of being able to directly influence their upbringing, these children were instead forced to experience the unique nature of their respective homeworlds. Some had a great time and lived in general luxury. Others, not so much. Despite his closest advisor, Malkador the Sigillite, saying,
That's gonna suck for
Chief,
Angron.
let's try this one again," the Emperor sensed each of his sons were still very much alive, and one of the primary objectives of the Great Crusade shifted to reclaiming each of his sons so they could take command of their specific Space Marine legions and carry out his will. These original Space Marine legions that were created alongside their Primarchs go in order: the Dark Angels, Emperor's Children, Iron Warriors, White Scars, Space Wolves, Imperial Fists, Night Lords, Blood Angels, Iron Hands, World Eaters,
I take it he likes the Night Lords.
Thousand Sons, Luna Wolves, eventually Sons of Horus, the World Bearers, Salamanders, Raven Guard, and the Alpha Legion. Space Marines, unlike their gene fathers, the Primarchs, are not made in a vat. There is a process to recruit more members from humanity itself, which seems a bit strange considering how massive a Space Marine is compared to a normal man, but don't forget, the Emperor is really good with genetics. Less good with anesthetic, however. These prospects are recruited across humanity for various reasons and methods, and are generally killed during that process. But
some good old
sometimes they
anesthesia.
aren't, and they are able to go through more and more of the actual training to assess certain traits that are important and relevant to being a Space Marine. Most of the time, the common factor is a pure, unrelenting willingness to kill the enemies of the Imperium. After going through psychological screening, the prospect, now called a neophyte, goes under the knife to become a Space Marine. And here is a quick list of all the cool new stuff they get genuinely shoved into their bodies. A secondary heart, an organ that makes your bones grow, an organ that makes your muscles big, an implant that makes your blood stronger, a little organ that turns your white blood cells into super white blood cells, a brain implant that allows you to sleep while being awake, a pre-stomach that allows you to digest literally anything, a spinal implant that allows you to absorb the genetic memories
Michael Phelps
of
lungs.
you eat, bigger and better lungs that can let you breathe underwater, an implant that gives you stronger eyes, new ears that keep you from being dizzy, a brain implant that lets you go into suspended animation if you're in a
So basically Cyberpunk.
skin that acts like transition glasses, I almost got it in one take, a brand new kidney, the ability to taste the air and find enemies like a bloodhound, a special coating on your skin that allows you to be protected in space, the ability to spit acid, a gland that allows you to absorb the unique genetic makeup from the gene seed in the first place, and a straight-up carapace that allows the Space Marine to interface with their power armor directly. Quite often, these are put inside of you at dubious levels of mental alertness and dubious levels of anesthetic. After a more generalized indoctrination into the faith of the Imperium and a bit more training and other important manners, they can finally be welcomed as a fully fledged Space Marine. A Space Marine is quite literally a walking tank that is armed to the teeth. Two of the more iconic weapons held by a Space Marine are their bolt gun, which fires explosive shells the size of soda cans, and a chainsword, which is... The Space Marine is clad in a colorful carapace known as power armor, crafted from extremely heavy and durable ceramite. The power armor of a Space Marine protects him from any terrors he may face, be it the void of space itself to an inhospitable atmosphere. This armor, combined almost biologically with an already massive physique, makes the Space Marine an almost unstoppable fighting force. And hell, if the armor doesn't protect them enough, they can always become a walking coffin like the dreadnoughts of the chapters are. What truly adds
but isn't
to it
that
all,
like
however,
only meant for
is the sheer
select
difference in some of them. While a Space Marine in its own right is an indoctrinated freight train,
I'm sure not
on legs,
everyone can
how
become
they
a dreadnought.
can be quite different from chapter to chapter. The gene seed of a Primarch is not just helping them become big and strong, but allows them to gain certain traits from their forefathers. Everything from how they think to even slightly adjusting their physical appearance once it's been implanted, the gene seed can be the personality of an entire Space Marine. Take the Salamanders, for example. Salamanders have a predisposition to fire as a whole, and tend to be extremely large due to the size of their Primarch, Vulcan and his enormous stature. Whereas someone like Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels, share more vampiric features and more angel-like qualities. A gene seed is not just aspects of the Primarchs, but they are also flaws too. Magnus the Red and his Thousand Sons underwent the flesh change, a horrifying mutation that while it made them strong psychers, would affect their bodies so terribly that they would mutate away from humanity. Where other factions have inspiration for their culture from our real world, like the feudal Japanese of the Eldar or Egyptian style Necrons, each Space Marine chapter themselves carry an inspiration. The White Scars are motorcycle riding Mongolian fighters. These Space Wolves are Norse Vikings. The Dark Angels are Knights of the Round Table, and so on. This moves into their fighting style, and truthfully, there is no end to the characters and options when it comes to the Space Marines. Space Marines are the main symbol you see, and while many of them
They're
can
extremely
be
versatile,
indoctrinated warriors who only care about conflict and can be quite boring, then you meet Dante, or Bjorn, or Argel Tal, or Karn, or Lucius, or Erebus. And then you discover the wealth
what was
of
that
these
at the end?
characters
Erebus.
and tools of war you can have.
What was that tone?
For 1100 years, I have fought and I have seen the darkness in our galaxy. I have seen the vileness of the alien and the heresy of the mutant. I have witnessed the sin of possession, and I have seen all the evil that the galaxy harbors, and I have slain all whose presence defiles the Emperor. I have seen what you will see. I have fought what you must fight, and I have slain what you must slay. So fear not and be proud, for we are the sons of Sanguinius, the protectors of mankind. We are indeed the angels of death.
Yeah.
Despite being the poster children for Warhammer 40k as a whole, the presence of a Space Marine is a rare sight for the countless trillions of humans across the galaxy. Seeing one of these monstrosities is like seeing something akin to an angel sent by the Emperor himself. These angels of death are the
That's
essential
just crazy to
fighting
think,
force
like, you
to
could go
bring
your whole
humanity
life
back
and never
under
see
the
one.
unified banner of the Imperium. Yet ultimately, the Space Marines are individuals torn from their families and conscripted to genetic modification and lifelong service for the dying Imperium. And though they are held in an almost holy light, most believe they are above and beyond the people they are designed to serve.
But that is a great honor to be chosen.
As the protectors of humanity, they seldom view humanity as something worth saving. To the extent that it is a tiny, minute rarity, though not unheard of, for a Space Marine to put a normal citizen above them in any way. For most Space Marines and even their Primarchs, they are only here to do a job. They are there to kill the enemies of humanity, and I would be remiss if I didn't add at least one more of my favorite quotes to the tail end of this section. "The time for speeches is done," said Rogel Dorn. "The first great test is here. My order to you all is simple, yet heed it well, and exert yourselves to see it done. They are coming. Kill them all." While the Space Marines are the spearhead of the Imperium's Great Crusade and also a major player in its warfare, there is a significant amount of importance that must be taken on their transport. What sci-fi universe would be complete without its navy? When you think of the navy or ships on the open sea, you think of something that is sleek, something mobile, and something pretty big. For perspective, the longest self-propelled ship in history was the TTC-Wise Giant, an oil tanker that was about 458 meters long or over about 1,500 feet. This right here is child's play in the world of 40k ships. A ship that is considered to be an escort vessel in the Imperium is about 3 times the size of a Sea-Wise Giant, and the size of the ships only go up from there. Your most common ships are the cruisers. The light cruiser tends to average at about 2 kilometers long, or just over a mile in length, where the Dictator class cruisers can be over 3 kilometers or 2 miles in length. The largest ships are your battleships, and they are tremendous. We're talking 5-mile long, half a mile high monstrosities that look like gigantic Gothic cathedrals and filled to the brim with weaponry. And not only are they filled with weapons, but they are also jam-packed with crewmen.
Would something like that be built?
On average,
like, I know it's a lot of people, but still,
several
like,
thousand to several million, and they need every
how
single
fast
one
can
of
they
those
pump one of
members
those things
because
out?
we don't have advanced technology for other things to pilot themselves or control themselves in a meaningful way because there's no AI. A lot of this stuff has to be done manually. Even the reloading of those giant batteries is a form of manual labor. And, of course, generally speaking, gliding through the stars is a very slow way to do things. And let's be honest, there can't be a science fiction setting without some form of hyperspace travel. This form of travel in 40k is less like going to Plaid in Spaceballs and more like going into Davy Jones' zipper dimension in SpongeBob.
Oh, now what? I suppose you're gonna show me. Oh, gee, that's very nice. Oh, what is this? Some kind of magic act?
Oh my god, that's actually pretty terrifying.
This is because it utilizes the immaterial warp to do so. Warp travel is handled by a navigator, which is an abhuman. It's a mutated human, don't worry about it. And they have a gene that gives them a third eye and the ability to help steer the ship through the warp, which, as we know, is hell itself and unreality. Now, this might sound exceptionally dangerous, and that's because it is. Now, the ship does have protection in the form of a Geller field, though. Originally, I assumed the Geller field is what you think it is, a large force field stopping all manner of horrible things, like demons from the warp tearing apart your ship.
Right.
How wrong I was, though. So, space travel through the warp basically involves riding on the Sea of Souls. Hell is real, and you can surf on it.
Okay.
So you allow the current to carry you and the navigator to direct. But how can a current of souls and unreality carry you when it doesn't obey the laws of physics, time, or, again, reality? What a Geller field is not a force field. But a comatose imperial psyker dreaming of reality. It is not a bubble. It is a force of reality being projected by mutant Sleeping Beauty to counteract the unreality of the warp that you can then surf on. This, of course, is not a foolproof method of travel, and Geller fields can and do collapse fairly regularly. Being subjected to the warp itself without this Geller field is a terrifying prospect. In the best case scenario, your ship will be torn to shreds. But there are countless instances of ships being thrown out of the warp randomly throughout time itself.
I can't think of the name of the movie. I know Sam Neill's in it.
And you come back 90 years in the past. Maybe you feel like you're lost in the warp for a century and it's only been 45 minutes. And that is only if the waves of souls don't rip your ship apart or have demons arrive on it to do unspeakable things to the crew. The Imperial Navy is an astronomically powerful force for the Imperium because the sheer volume of ships and guns on those ships create firepower that can sunder planets. This is all juxtaposed with the sheer backwater nature of these ships. While they are manned by crews of zealots, they are also operated with such a backwater tech, it completely confuses the reader. You see the long batteries of portside cannons that the ship has, and remember that AI is heresy in this world, and that all the mechanics are utilized by lobotomized slaves.
Yes.
So how do they load these? Well, they have gun gangs, massive gangs of hundreds of people manually loading these cannons. These are genuine gun loader gangs that get into gang wars and squabbles. On the ship's bridge, you may find the captain himself.
I figured they would have had at least
hardwired
machines
directly into the ship's chair permanently to control it the best they can. Giant screens of hololith data fill the room, and sensors across the ship are just as likely to tell you information as a serf running up to you with a scroll of parchment is. You reach to a microphone to shout orders down a hallway as paper readouts tell you information of the enemy, and holy sigils and candlelit incense burners gleam your next move. While the
All right. So there we go. I'm going to call it here for today. But that was very interesting. I didn't know that about, a lot of the Imperial Navy, the ships. Obviously, I knew the size and stuff like that, but I didn't know about, like, gun gangs. I kind of thought there would have been at least some sort of, like, manufacturing loaders, But, I mean, I guess it is 40k, and I mean, come on. That is a little bit more grim, dark, and stuff like that. Like, machinery, loaders, no. Just get a couple hundred people to, manually do it. That's just more dark. But yeah, that was pretty cool. That was good, But yeah, this video's been awesome. This video has been awesome. I can't wait for him to do his part 2. That's going to be interesting. But yeah, why did he change when he was doing the Primarchs? He was like 20, no, 18, no, 19. I don't know why he did that. That was kind of interesting. Unless that was a goof? Or, I don't know. Let me know, because, yeah, he did like 20, Unless it was like an editing thing, he meant to do 20, no, 19, no, 18. Unless it was just an editing goof. I don't know, let me know. But anyways, there we go. There is my part 3. This video just keeps getting better and better. Love the explanation. You have this Mechanicus and stuff like that. A lot of new stuff. Didn't even know about that. Didn't know about you know, the double-headed eagle and what that actually meant. So that was really cool. So yeah, getting a lot more knowledge definitely out of these videos. So this is awesome. Another great video from Bricky. So anyways, yeah, let me know what you guys think. What did you think about the video? And did you learn anything new? You know, let me know. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. That'd be awesome. Remember, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media. Links in the description box below. And other than that, just stick around. More videos are on the way. And I will see you guys next time.